You're listening to the best of the Morning X, dropping back into the interview from a few moments ago. This is the original 99X.
Let's take some calls. When you're on with Robert Shapiro.
Hi.
Hello.
I have a question about the jury process.
The jury process.
The selection.
What's your name?
Kim Smith.
Hi, how are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
Great.
It's come under fire recently. I've read several different articles. And what do you think some of the changes that we could make are? And do you think that our judicial system, being so resistant to change, would be willing to make any changes?
Well, I don't think the O.J. Simpson case in particular is one that we should look to for changes in the system of justice. It was a unique case. It was unique on the amount of effort the prosecutors put in. It was the greatest investigation effort ever put forward. Same thing on the defense side. We had enormous resources that were necessary to properly present this case. As far as changes in the jury selection process, you can't really look at this case. This was a case that everybody in the world had heard about and had knew something about before we got into the courtroom. And that, in my mind, put us in a position where I was really concerned that we could ever get a fair and impartial jury. I think the change, if any, is the attitude of the public, and that is when you are called for jury duty, respond to it. Not only is it an obligation as far as citizenship, but it will be one of the most rewarding experiences of your life.
One of the stories you told in here I had never heard through the press. Maybe it was in there, I don't know. The guy who from Canada was strapping himself with dynamite or something if he could get close to you. What was that all about? Some letter you got or something?
Well, in high-profile cases, it brings out the best and the worst of people. And this was a person who I believed was slightly disturbed, who wrote a letter. And in his letter, he said, "You are the only person O.J. Simpson will listen to, in my opinion. And it will be your obligation to make sure he pleads guilty. And in the event you don't, I will come up to the courthouse with 12 sticks of dynamite and blow you and myself and Mr. Simpson up if he walks out the door." As a backup, if that doesn't work, I have $100,000 in the bank, and that I will hire a hitman to kill you. We certainly took him seriously. We all had security throughout and continue to, but there had been towards me nothing in the way of real threats. There had been some anger, but no real threats.
Was there ever a time you thought you would not win this case? Was there ever a moment that anything happened you thought, we may have just blown it?
From the beginning of the case, especially after the preliminary hearing, when Dr. Golden was cross-examined and was left with virtually no credibility whatsoever.
Right.
When it became clear that there was contamination of the evidence, when we brought out, when we brought out the facts that 4 lead detectives, the only ones in charge with doing any investigation, had left the bloodiest crime scene they'd ever seen to go pay a condolence call on O.J. Simpson. It was clear to me that O.J. Simpson would never be convicted, that the worst we would have would be a hung jury unless we, the lawyers for the defense, made a drastic mistake, and we didn't.
What was that night like for you? The night when the verdict's in, tomorrow it's going to be read. What was it like sitting there just zoned out, or were you just relieved that it was over, wondering what was going to happen?
Well, I was certainly wondering what the verdict would be. I had talked to my client at great length on the phone. I got there early the next morning and spent an hour with him.
What was he like? Was he agitated? Was he calm? Was he...
It was... we've done all we can. We did it as well as we could, and now it's simply up to the jury.
I got the impression from the book that... and I was very interested to learn that, you had just nothing more than really a passing relationship with O.J. before the trial. You had seen each other at parties from here and then. And then, but afterwards you say how probably you won't have much of a relationship with him afterwards, that it was purely a business relationship. And from that I also took it to mean that you really don't have a lot of respect for him as a man.
Oh, no, one has nothing to do with the other. What I do is very unique. It's almost like a surgeon We are dealing with life and death matters every day of the week. And I have always viewed my relationships with my clients as professional relationships. And I cannot really establish a bond where I become personally involved in their lives to a degree that I cannot do my job objectively. I'm not there to be their friend. I'm not there for them to like me or for me to like them. I am there to be an advocate, to give them the best advice from my experience that I can. And it's no different with any other client, whether they be athletes that I've represented in the past, people who are in politics, doctors, or lawyers. My representation generally is a one-time thing. It's a professional representation, and it has no reflection whatsoever on my feelings about the people.
How uncomfortable was it to pass Fred Goldman in the halls every day?
Well, it was uncomfortable isn't a proper word to describe it. Here's a man who was in the ultimate pain of any human being, having suffered the loss of a loved one to a brutal murder attack.
Right.
And I had great empathy for Fred Goldman, but there is no way that I could do anything to help him through his anguish. And so it was uncomfortable knowing that he viewed us really with great disdain.
How does this get out of hand? You have an amazing amount of lawyers together, the dream team once again. How do people like Alan Dershowitz and F. Lee Bailey continue to go on TV during the trial and Johnny Cochran make the comments that he makes? Weren't you all meeting and discussing these things before they happened?
Yes, we were, and it was my preference that there should be very little said, and you're dealing with lawyers who have tremendous experience, who
have large egos.
Including myself, and you really, when you bring together a group of lawyers of this caliber, cannot tell them what to do. You can only suggest, and then everybody has to leave it up to their own judgment as to how they want to proceed in the public eye.
The Search for Justice, Robert Shapiro.
You're listening to the best of the Morning X. You can also catch it on the Morning X podcast, wherever you get your podcasts, or at 99x.com.
I'm Paula Pan. I help people make the smartest money decisions possible because let's face it, money's too important to wing it.
What you'll hear is a couple money geeks sitting and talking about this stuff that we're so passionate about.
You name it, anything that's on your mind. Retirement debt, student loans, saving for college.
It's a personal finance journey. It is a wide-ranging squirrel conversation about the topic of personal finance and good financial planning. Super fun.
Afford anything. Follow and listen on your favorite platform.